Hello, everybody. This is Alicia Dianne, and thank you so much for joining me for making a graphic novel. We're going to continue working on Jaydi's story number 2, Prudence, and I'm excited to share with you. So, welcome everyone on Facebook, everyone on YouTube, all of my Cartoon Arts Center family on Meetup. Thank you for joining us. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead onto our other screen where you can see the work I'm doing, and I'll talk about the process while we're there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. If it will let me. Let's see. It should be able to take me over there. So let's go ahead and go. Let's see. I need to find a camera. There we go. Okay, thank you. I always forget how it works. Let me go ahead and. I know, it's just like I never remember how it works. So I have to make a note to myself or something. Alright, so it almost is like a fisheye lens when we go on this screen, but I like that. I kind of think that's kind of a cool effect. So what I'm going to be showing you now is first let's go ahead and tape these down. Usually I just use like a regular tape like this one. It's a Scotch masking tape. But lately also been trying and experimenting with this 3M tape. I had a not great experience. It's like painter's tape officially, but I had a not great experience with the blue tape when I was first starting to use it in college because it kept coming off. Like some of them don't really, I mean, I know it's not supposed to mess up your paper. It's kind of why it doesn't have the same amount of like stickiness, but some of them just don't really tape at all. But I've been having better luck with this 3M. I'm not officially a proponent of it just yet, but I'm starting to like it a little bit more. I'm still kind of experimenting, so I'm trying to see. Still not sure if my next tape that I buy is going to be the actual 3M or if I'm going to go back to that Scotch masking tape. So that will be to be determined. Let's see. This is actually picking up exactly where I left off from last week pretty much. I did finish that spread, and so this is the next one. And I've also been working on a children's work as well for a client. I don't know if I talked about that last week. I might have. But if I didn't, I am working on a children's project, and I was also thinking about sharing that experience online as well. Just kind of like for people who are interested in starting to illustrate children's books, whether it's for yourself or whether you want to do it for freelance, or if you want to start thinking about creating a portfolio for an agent, which is the boat that I am in. Any one of those. So if you're interested in that, yeah, please let me know, because I'm still kind of thinking if whether or not I want to do that. But I think I probably will. I told you in the last one that I do a little bit of changes because I decided after I did the drawings for these that I wanted to make her clothes a little bit more tattered. So I'm going to go ahead and add those things to my illustration so that I can paint the correct colors in the right spots and don't miss out on those things. So it's really minor little things that I'm just trying to like adjust there. So I'm just going to put those in, plug those in, and I'm going to start with my base color. Usually I use a yellow base. I always like to put some type of base down because I feel like when you just leave the plain white paper, it just feels, at least just for me, it just feels less, I don't know, alive. I just like to start with a little bit of something, and I feel like that kind of works better for me. I'm still trying to think about what I wanted to really go over today as far as our discussion. I just knew that I would be painting, but sometimes I'm like, alright, I'm painting, but what am I going to talk about? And that's kind of how I am every week. I figure it out. I kind of like to go off of fly by the seat of my pants, even if that's not really the best thing to do. It's kind of like, that's kind of how I roll. It's like either I do this or I don't. And I'm like, alright, well, if I'm going to do it, then just get on the computer and do it. And I did take this little workshop yesterday. And speaking of children's books, I took this little workshop. It was like I want to say it was free, but you know, it's one of those advertising promotions where like they'll give you like a free introduction into a class, and then usually the class itself is like $1,000. So depending on the class, it's really up to you to figure out if it's worth it or not. I did take one of those classes. The one that I took was comics launch, which I really enjoyed, and I can talk a little bit about that for a while. There's like this whole community basically for making comics and self-publishing on Kickstarter, and I was planning to launch my first book on Kickstarter anyway before I even like heard about that thing. And so when I heard about it, I was like, all right, that seems right up my alley. I'm gonna look into it, and I signed up for it, and it's a really good class. It's called Comics Launch Pro, and they do have like a podcast, which I didn't even know until after I bought the class, but the podcast like gives you tips, and like every week they have like a different topic that they'll discuss, and you can listen to it on iTunes, and of course podcasts are free, but the class itself is called Comics Launch Pro, and I really enjoyed it myself. There's still like bonus material that I haven't even listened to yet, and I got the class like 3 years ago, but I listened to everything I needed to for the Kickstarter campaign, and like what it's like to run your first Kickstarter campaign, because I had never done it before. So it was nice to know that there's like a whole community, and apparently comics is one of the most popular platforms on Kickstarter, which I didn't know. But it's nice too if you have like a very specific niche. Like for me specifically, like there's not too many people doing what I'm doing as far as like content, like the topic is about. Just talking about faith and in a small town in Eastern Kenya. I mean, I haven't seen any other books like that, but I mean, maybe there could be one out there. I don't know. I just haven't seen any. I haven't seen too many books in general about like small towns in Africa. but you might have a particular thing that you're writing about that's very like niche or a specific topic that you haven't seen before. And one really good thing about the workshop that I was in yesterday about the children's books was the guy in the program who was like helping the lady promote is a guy I listen to a lot and have been listening to for a long time. His name is Jack Canfield. He is the co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and he does a lot of motivational speaking, a lot of public speaking. He has this really excellent book that I would really recommend. It's called The Success Principles, and I've read it I've read it multiple times. I have the physical copy and I have the audiobook, and I've read both. I listened to the audiobook like probably 10 times already. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to incorporate everything. This is the thing. It's like when you read any sort of book on improving or self-improvement or success or anything like that, it's always like it's more of a almost like an instruction manual, so you have to keep going back to it. It's not like you just like a novel or something, you just read it once and you're like, oh, that was the story. It's like there's so many different aspects to it that if it's a good one, you're gonna want to like keep referring back to it so you can continue learning from it, continue like applying things. Like one of the books I read also by Brian Tracy was like, you want to try and incorporate one piece into your life at a time. And I think that is really helpful, because you can't really change everything about yourself at the same time, especially if you're trying to build new habits and build like good habits. Hopefully that isn't too loud. I try to turn the fan on so that it can start to dry this paper. I should have did that from the beginning, but I hope it's not too loud. And now it starts making weird noises. But anyway, I'm going to let this dry for just a few minutes, and maybe I'll switch to the other camera so that we can talk in the meantime. Let's go ahead and try and do that. So we'll try and let this dry for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll go back. Okay, so while I'm letting that dry, we can go ahead and talk. So I even have the book right here. I keep the books that I really like pretty close to me. You can tell I've beaten this book up because it's like I kept it in my backpack forever because I would just take it everywhere and just read it whenever I had the time to, whenever I could. Like, beat this book up, but it's a really good one, and I would really recommend it. But you don't get to apply everything like the first time that you read it. It takes a few times to really start incorporating like one piece after the other. And I had another point. And I think I forgot. No, in the lecture that I was listening to yesterday, what was the point that he made? I wrote it down. So there's that. And maybe I can find the woman's name too if you guys are interested in looking her up, because she does like a whole seminar series on children's book and publishing. Oh no, I did got stuff on my shirt. Oh well. Alright, so I'm going to go and find the note that I made, because I think it was a really good point. I want to share that. So what he said, I have my note here. Ba 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 ba. Choo 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 choo. Alright. Oh, they did have a couple. Let me see. Trying to find specifically. Oh, here it is. I found it. So it says like if you're looking for a book and you can't find it, it means that you're supposed to write it. And I don't know why I didn't. It was in my head and then it just like flew away. So I had to go back and find it in my iPad. I always take notes in my iPad. But I think that's a really good point that like if you're trying to find a specific book, and I think that means a lot too about like the heroine of your book if you or hero of your book. If you're trying to find a particular type of hero and you don't see that character, then I think that that's also a big sign too that you're supposed to write the book or write the story. Not everything is meant to be in the same medium either. I think that so many things are meant for different types of mediums. Like some things are meant to be comics, some things are meant to be movies, some things are meant to be children's books, and some things are meant to be all of the above. And I don't think that that's not. I think really strong stories, really like powerful stories, can be told in multiple different versions in multiple ways. But then you have like the ones that are just meant to be one thing. And I feel like there's some stories that I enjoy just as a comic that I wouldn't necessarily want to see as a movie, even if I really like the comic. So I think it depends. And I think it depends on like how powerful it is too. Like what your purpose is behind the story. I feel like a slice of life I don't necessarily need to see like in live action or something, but at the same time it could be like an animated series depending on the story. I think it really depends because like you can see a show like Garfield and it really works as an animated series, but that doesn't mean that like everything that you see you want to see animated. So I think it depends. Another point that I wanted to go over with what I was looking at in that program. I mean, the seminar that I was on, it was really meant for like people aspiring to be writers and people aspiring to be children's book writers, and I feel like there's so many people that do want to write children's books, and I think as an illustrator that's a really good thing because it gives us an opportunity to really have another market for what we're trying to do, because right now I'm really putting the whole I guess the whole idea of working in the animation industry, I'm just kind of putting it on the back burner because I feel like I was trying to do it for so long and I was really trying for so hard that, and it just, nothing was really happening, that I just, it's like, I think after 8 years, I feel like, all right, I think I can take the hint. Maybe it's not for me right now. Then not to say that it won't be at some later time, which it may or may not be, but I just feel like I want to have a little bit more of a say in what I'm doing. I don't want to be like on someone else's back burner, if that makes sense. And I think I'm kind of, I think I don't know if outgrowing is the right word, but I kind of feel like I'm outgrowing the idea of, or like the desire to want to be on someone else's back burner. I want to have more of a say, and I feel like I want to feel like I'm doing more of something that feels entrepreneurial, just starting my own thing, and I feel like working on this own graphic novel and doing freelance, or even hopefully soon I'll be doing contracted children's books. Then I feel like I have, I don't know if it's the predictability that I want, but I feel like it's just more of a, maybe it is. It just takes the whole guessing game out of it. So, I mean, even if it leads to other things, I just feel like I want to create. I just want to feel like I'm creating something and not waiting for something to happen. it just feels like a more of a proactive step, and I guess that's really what I'm wanting to be and do, not just in this new year, but I think kind of just going forward. I just feel like I want to be proactive, and I feel like for me personally, um, with animation, it felt a lot more like, mm, I don't know what the word is. It just felt like more of a passive thing. I was like waiting. I felt like it was like I was in a waiting room for a long time. So I'm gonna see if our illustration is ready to keep painting. It may be. So let's switch back over to the other camera. Alright, I'm gonna turn this fan off for a moment. Hopefully, it feels like it's kind of at least ready to get going, so that's a good thing. And I can probably, I might just take this. I have like a light fixture on this, which I don't really think I need because I'm using a different light source. So I think I'm gonna take this off so it's not so much in my way. I got this whole thing on Amazon, but it comes with like an extra ring light. You guys see? But my lamp is, I think, well lit enough that I don't need an extra lamp right there. So I'm gonna take that off for now. I'll put that on the side because it's taking up too much of my valuable real estate over here. I'm gonna go ahead and get started on this. I need to put lotion on because my hands are super dry. I need some elevator music though, but the problem is finding elevator music that is royalty free. If anybody has a link for like a continuous playlist that plays that's royalty free, or like even a channel, that would be perfect. A channel that's like that I can play while I'm doing these paintings, that would be excellent. Alright, so let's see. I need to get my brown color. And now my paint is a little bit cakey because I haven't used it in a few weeks. Always keep like some scraps around when you're doing watercolor. So you need to see how it's going to come out before you put it on your paper. I probably should have sketched in the street here, because that's what should be in this corner. Is this street? Or maybe I'll just have it be kind of like on a blur. That could be an option as well. So this is gonna fill in where I have actual street. Street, I use like this red earth color. There's so many, and I've looked up like on Google Earth all of these different locations that they have in Quale County, which is where this story is based off of, and the earth is really like this deep reddish color. I think it's always good to have some sort of a basis for the location, even if it's a completely fictional space, like even if it's like outer space, find something to base it off of. As I've been watching like some of those Star Wars movies, like all of those places are based off of things. And the costuming too, and I think I talked about that before, but you want to have some sort of inspiration, like even in Lord of the Rings, like because you got to film somewhere. Think about that too. Like if you were to film, if your animated, not animated, if your graphic novel was to become like a film one day, what might be one of the sites where they would actually film it? I think that's something to keep in mind, like thinking about things like that. Where would it be taking place? Even if it's a fictional place, like what places kind of could mimic that, or could be dressed up on set to look like that. That's something to take into consideration. Like there's a lot of places that have futuristic feels, and of course, like with CGI, you can always add things, but you want to think about what the template looks like. What would the earth be like? What would the type of animals be like that are there? And I think that's really important to know for yourself, if nothing else, just so you know. That's part of the world building. Knowing where your story is going to take place. And just trying to think for a second if I wanted to do a background. I think I'll just do that one, solid color. So I'll fill in this area. Maybe up here. And this area will be also painted as earth. That's a road. But even just seeing like this pale yellow, I just think it adds a little bit of life. I was listening to an artist on Domestica actually the other day, because I take those classes. I like continuing learning stuff like as much as I can, whenever I can. So I was listening to this artist, and he was talking, and he's saying like everything in reality has tints of yellow and brown. Like everything in reality has some tint of like yellow and brown. I think it's true. I think the yellow part is coming from the sun, because everything under the sun is like a little bit tinted by um, that yellow light that we have. Our light is yellow naturally, so I feel like it affects everything around it. So I totally get what that guy was saying, and it made me think about too, like how I incorporate my colors. Even if it's a white color, you might want to have a little tint of yellow in there just to give it that sort of more of a realism type of thing. It makes a difference. And let me see if I can show you. Sometimes I'll look back at the last pages I did just to kind of remember the colors I was using, just to be sure, so I can go back and see that like her hijab is like a more of a orangey yellow, and then I have that wall behind her and more like that lemon yellow. So that helps me when I go back and try to remember what exactly were the colors. I also recommend like keeping some sort of a tabs of all the structures you have. That was a humongous job that I had to do this book around. I had to make a map for everything. And I talked about that sometimes. I'm using koi paints for these. I also have my set of cheap paints that I use for some stuff, but not that much stuff. But mostly I'm using these koi watercolor tubes, and I keep them in this like big palette. I'll show that to you. I think I've showed it before, but if I get a chance to show you before the end, I will. I'm gonna mix in some of that new paint. So you gotta be careful when you're going over places that are still wet, so I'm gonna try my best to just avoid it. The good thing is if you have a decent brush and you have the right consistency on your paper, then it's not gonna bleed over into the other section. But if there's too much water on that brush, then it will. So you have to really get used to, if you're using something like a watercolor, whatever your medium is, you have to just know it. And I feel like me and watercolor are kind of friends, but watercolor is like a cat though. It's even once you befriend it, it still might, every once in a while throw you for a loop. That's how I like to think of watercolors. They're like cats. Yeah. In that case, then digital painting would probably be like the closest thing to a dog. It's like seems the most like it's fairly predictable. So I'll just go in here, fill in. I always start with like, I don't know what I would call it. I do background colors, but it's not that it has to be the furthest back. I think it's more of like the ones that are taking up the most real estate. I think I try to think about it like that. Like the biggest sort of areas. I like to get those kind of out of the way sooner than later. You don't have to like think about it over and over again. And I think that kind of goes with any medium that you use. You just want to kind of cover it. That's one thing that I really want to do this year is get better with my coloring. I want to say coloring in general, but especially with digital, because it feels like I'm still learning it. And I feel like with watercolor I just have to keep trying. Because it's like you can forget almost how to watercolor. I noticed that like after a while, if I haven't used it, I get rusty or I get unsure with my consistencies, like the intensity and all of that. So it's something that you have to kind of use. It's like they say you never forget how to ride a bike, but I do. I know that I've forgotten how to ride a bike, so it is in some sense like riding a bike. You do have to keep it up, or you will kind of forget little things. And in the same way, it's like you have the muscle memory that you start to like relearn it fairly quick if you don't wait too long. This one is yellow. This side, I have the buildings all like planned out. So some of them, where did I put my buildings? Oh, paper on there it is. So I have a whole like paper that I did so that I could remember what my building colors were, and I have like each part of the market so that I'll know like where I'm at, and this is where I'm at right now, where the water is. So having something like this, they tell you like the shape of the buildings, just all the colors. I just fill that in with the Copic. That's been a big help for me since I started doing that. So this is yellow. This background is yellow as well. So if all of this is that yellow, then I'll probably change that to something like complementary to it. But I was also thinking to do something that stands out, so maybe I'll do an orange so that way it will still be bright, but will be like complementary. And this wall is a different color. Let's see, is there anything else? I think I'll do this orange color. Oh, I really need to mix my paints. Oh, piggy. One thing that I do like about this palette that I have is I have a nice I have a pretty nice cover that goes over it so that it lasts a lot longer when you're not using it, which comes really handy. But if I don't remember always to put the cover back on it, so that happens sometimes. But right now I'm going to use this other palette because I don't have the other one in my palette. I don't have a koi for bright orange, so that's when the other one comes in handy. And there's just some colors that are just available that maybe I don't want to have to mix. I think with watercolor, the brush and the paper is more important than the actual pigment. I know that might sound a little strange, but I do think it's like paper especially. If you don't have the right paper and you're trying to do watercolor, it's just gonna look awful. And I'm really lucky that this paper actually works in the printer for me to print out these sketches, like the ink lines, because if it didn't, I don't know. I do have to bend them because they're pretty thick. They're like, the paper is what, 140-pound paper? What's that in grams? Some people using grams. It's 300-gram paper. So, and that's like the weight of it. It's not physical weight, obviously. Each sheet is not 140 pounds. It's the thickness of it. You get used to it if you use different art papers a lot. But a good way to know is like, usually I like 100-pound or more if I'm going to use like, if it's anything that's going to be like, you know, permanent, anything beyond just like a regular sketchbook, you want to get like 100-pound. Watercolor, you need the thickest, I think, because you really want it to hold that paint well. And I think that matters even more than the brand of paint you use. And I really like these brushes. It's really like, I don't know what kind of fiber that is on the end, but you can feel it. It's really soft. You want to use a soft fiber brush. Okay, now I'm going to do some of those other ground colors, which is like a natural brown. Also, if you do have questions about any part of this process, anything that you're trying to do, I can also answer any questions that I'm able to answer. This is my second book in the series, my second graphic novel. The first one was 92 pages, and this is spread 13, so this would be illustration pages 25 and 26 for this one, and in all there's 48 spreads, so I'm on 13, still have quite a few to go. I do my work in order. A lot of artists and filmmakers don't like to work in order. For the reason why, I don't know. They just kind of, I don't know if it's like based on feeling or I don't know why, honestly. But I like to do everything in order, even if I'm shooting something, which is rare. I don't really shoot anything in live action. It's very, very rare. But even when I do that, I like to do it in order. I'm just like, certain things I am very type A about. I don't know why. I have a very arty mind, but I'm really type A about some things, and I don't know why. It's just how I am. Don't ask me why. It does help to have this fan going, because otherwise I just kind of get up and walk away while it's drying, or if I'm really like antsy to get it done, I use a blow dryer, but I don't think blow dryer is going to sound good at all over a camera. So this fan is really doing a good job of keeping some consistency in the drying process, which I needed. The first thing is I want to get everything covered, so I don't like to have anything that's kind of not covered. I want to have all of my ground covered. Then I can go ahead and double layers. I think you always need 2 layers of paint when you're doing watercolor. It just, except of course for that base layer, but everything else really needs 2 layers, because it just doesn't look finished until it has the 2 layers on there. It just doesn't look finished. And you don't want your pictures or paintings to not look finished. I'm really appreciative too. A lot of, I'm seeing quite a few new subscribers. So hopefully you guys have signed up for the mail list. You have a free gift in there. I put a book together, Making of Jaydi Stories, the first series, how I got started with all the concepts, how I got started with artwork, doing character designs, all of that sort of thing. So if that's something that you're interested in, I have the link, will be available in bio. You can also go to my website, aliciadianne.com, and there's a link there for the newsletter, and you get that free gift when you want to sign up for that. Everyone in the meetup, you're automatically enrolled. You're free to disenroll if at any point that you feel dissatisfied with my service, but I don't think that will happen, because it's a really good service. And I really think that the gift is good. It's It's like 70 pages, color pages of like illustrations, paintings, and me talking about the process. So I think definitely it's worth having a look at. Yeah, a lot of these paints I think I need to like refill. Use this one, this refill, carmine color. This is a really pretty color. It's like a fuchsia almost. It's not red, it's not pink, but it has a little, it's kind of pink tainted. It has like a little bit of blue in it. And you can't really see that much, but when you do see it, it's really pretty. So it's like a little hint of blue. And here we go. So this other wall over here is that color, so let me flatten my brush out a bit. I'm going to make sure that you can see the edge you're trying to use there. I just love how this paint paints though. It's so nice. Yeah, I wasn't trying to say that like paint doesn't matter at all. It does, but much more so is it the paper and getting used to it, because having the right amount of water on the brush makes a big difference. You don't want to have, if you have too much, it's just going to make a big mess. And I want this panel to stand out too, so even though like she's not standing behind a wall this color, I wanted to have that attitude, so I'm giving her that pink color. Only about half of my panels, or maybe just a little bit more than half, actually have a background, because you don't need it in every panel. Like, it's already assumed that they are someplace. And if you do your setup right, you're establishing shots, you're showing where they are, then you don't need to keep redrawing the background for everyone. I mean, you want to have it enough where it makes sense, but you definitely don't need it in every panel. Especially the ones where you want like the character's expression to really stand out. Like this one. And in that case, you don't need to worry about it. Okay, so I'm most definitely gonna need 2 layers. I'll let it dry. And now I gotta think what colors I want these. Since there's so much warm, I think I'm gonna do them cool to balance it out, because it's like all the colors I've put in so far are warm. So I definitely want to have some balance. I'm gonna have a little bit of sky here, so that will make it a little bit cooler. A little bit cooler with sky here, but overall it's like a lot of warm colors. So I want to put some cool over here. Alright, so for the cool, I think I'll do, let's see, I need to like add some more blue to my paint as well, so let me go ahead and do that. I need a couple different blues. I'm using this cobalt blue. I'm also using, it's like Russian blue. What's this one? Cerulean blue. This one. I'm gonna have 2 more blues in my palette. So cerulean blue, Russian, cobalt blue. And there should be 2 more. The ultramarine and the Prussian. So, let me think. Which one I want to use for what? I use usually the Prussian blue. Is it the Prussian blue? Yeah, I think it's the Prussian blue I use for the shadows. So I don't do too many other things with that blue. The other blue. Let me check. I need to add more water. Let's see how that works. It should be like almost like a milk texture, like consistency, or like whole milk. You want it to be thick, not too thick. But I think having a milk sort of density is like ideal for watercolor. If you start to see it's getting too thin, like it's looking like skim milk, it's time to add some more paint on the palette. That's the best way I can describe it, I think. Yeah, then it comes out nice and smooth like that. That's how you want it to look. Can you see that? Yes, that looks nice. That's the consistency that we want. I've got to mix all of these, so sorry I didn't have them pre-mixed and ready to go, but yeah, this is the one I use for shadows. Which one is this one? I use the ultramarine. I think that's the one I use for the shadows. So, yeah, that's a nice blue. You always have to have rags when you're doing watercolor too, so that you can get the right amount of. It takes so much trial and error. Like I don't even. It's like so automatic right now, but I think it's like habit of consistently mix, like drop off the paint, test it on the paper. Sometimes it's like you already know, like as soon as you put it in, like if it's the right amount of water. That happens sometimes. No, I think this is the one I use for shadows. Test it. The darkest color that I have is that Prussian blue. I think this might be my shadow color. Oh. Yeah, that's it. Took me a second to realize which one was which. We're so close to summer. I added probably a little bit too much paint, so now I have to like get the right amount of water back in there, so that I'm not working with like butter thick paint, because that's too thick. Maybe if you're working with acrylic, you want it to be kind of buttery. It's almost like with acrylic, you want it to be like melted, like softened butter. You want to be thicker than watercolor, but you don't want it to be too thick either. Like right out of the tube thick is like too much. So that's why I really like working with water-based colors, because all of the medium that you're mixing it with is water, so you don't have to worry about like the toxic chemicals that come with all oil mediums. I don't know if everybody realizes that, but the mediums for and like the cleaning fluid for oil paint is really toxic. It can cause cancer. Just You know, when people are like, oh, I only use oil or whatever, it's like, maybe you shouldn't. I mean, I don't hate on oil. A lot of people really love oil, but I like not having to worry about too much toxic fumes, especially because I work from home. I have my studio in my home, so I don't want a bunch of toxic stuff. I do have some oil paints and I use them sometimes, but rare. And I do like not having to worry about all the toxic stuff that comes with using oil. And you gotta worry about that too, like if you use the processing fluids for photography, those too have like toxic fumes. You want to be an artist that lives long enough to see yourself succeed. Don't go getting cancer, please. I try not to. Alright, I think I'm getting, this blue one, I had put way too much in my palette, so I had to mix a whole bunch of water to get it to be that whole milk thickness that I'm trying to get. And now I think I got it. Alright, and now I just have to wipe it out on my brush because I need a different color. I'm going to go ahead and use that sort of medium color blue, my cobalt blue, for this background. Because I just want to have that balance of like the cool. It's like the same color as my tape. I try not to get outside of the lines, but I don't worry about it too much because I scan all of these into Photoshop anyway, and if there's something that is like bugging me or something I need to take out, then I can just remove that in Photoshop. It's a little bit of extra work, but it's not too much. But thank God for Photoshop because I got some of the colors wrong in the early panels. Like I mixed up the street color and the sidewalk color, and I swapped them, so I have to alter those colors in Photoshop because I messed that up. But if I didn't if this was like 100 years ago, or how long ago was Photoshop made, in the 80s? So if this was like in the 60s or earlier, then I probably would have had to do the whole thing over again. That would really suck. I mean, it's still gonna take some time because I have to really be careful how I use the select tool to grab the color, but it's not so bad. It shouldn't be a total redo. And if there's anything I really hate, it's like having to do redos. I really don't like that. I really don't have to do something completely over from scratch. But sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you have to. And now I'm not sure if I want to do this last panel with a lighter blue or if I want to do it with like a violet. Let me see. Maybe do it with the lighter blue. Let me see. Still have to decide. I really, really like the violet color that comes with the Koi collection. It's like this. It's also similar to like it's in that fuchsia family. It's a nice color. Oh crap, we're already an hour in. I didn't realize we were going so long. I'm just gonna sit here and paint this entire thing. Don't worry, I'll do that too. I don't think I even covered half of the stuff that I wanted to cover. I know I was in some ways winging it, but at the same time I still have my things in mind, my agendas. I just want to get more into children's books, but I guess it makes sense that if I can do that in a separate video, I'll talk about getting started doing freelance children's books. I've done a few in the past and really working on making that more of a full-time thing, but that's something that I can also talk about in another video as well, because I want to do that as its own series. And I'm also planning to do several videos covering the principles of animation with exercises that you can practice if you are interested in doing any sort of animation. Just because I said I'm kind of putting the animation industry on the back burner, doesn't mean I'm putting animation itself on the back burner. I still have things that I'm interested in doing. Actually, I like the purple color, I think. I still have things I'm interested in doing, and I still I'm teaching animation. I want to continue to get strong. I never really wanted, after I graduated and realized what it all takes, I kind of realized I didn't want to be an animator for a living, but I wanted to do like visual development. And right now I'm focusing more on children's books, but I also wanted to have my own thing going on with animation as far as teaching goes, because I just think it's such a great thing to learn how to do. Once you know how to animate, you can, I don't know, it's such a freeing thing. And I really want to be able to teach people how to animate. Character animation, specifically. It's such a wonderful medium. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to leave it at this for the recording aspect of everything. I hope it was helpful for you and that you got something from it. Hopefully you got something good from it. Let me go to my other camera. Alrighty, so thank you so much for being with me and for joining me today. It was really fun being able to just kind of talk about different things that are on my mind. That's what this whole channel is really about, just being able to kind of get things off of, out of my head and hopefully into your head. I don't know if that really makes sense, but that's what I'm hoping that this channel does. And I'm hoping that through my experiences and through what I'm going through, hopefully just get you some sort of insight and help you to avoid the mistakes that I've made and make the best decisions that you can for the projects that you're working on. Alright, well, I will see you guys in a few days for another great video.